Begin with the breaking news. Those images coming in from the Gulf of Mexico tonight, a deadly blast.
Look at this thing. That is disturbing.
There's a reason Mexico is frantically digging up the floor of the Gulf of Mexico, and it's not just about bigger boats. It's about a tectonic shift in global power, accelerated by a phenomenon known as nearshoring. They are extracting literally tons of soil to create a port of the future, a project so ambitious it's almost unbelievable. The results are stunning, yes, but the real story, the one that'll make you question everything, involves ancient underwater caves, a revolutionary railway, and a high-stakes environmental gamble that could end in disaster. It's hard to believe, but the reality is that this is happening right now. The ocean superhighway. You see, for decades, the Yucatan Peninsula has been a paradox. It's a land of ancient wonders and breathtaking beauty, perfectly positioned at the crossroads of global trade, yet it's been economically sidelined. Its ports, like the famous one in Progreso, were stuck in the past. Even with the world's longest pier, stretching an incredible 5 miles into the Gulf, it was all for show. The waters were just too shallow. Modern cargo ships, the behemoths known as post-Panamax and new Panamax vessels, simply couldn't get close. It's like having a brand new sports car, but no paved roads to drive it on. This limitation forced ships to take long, costly detours, adding days and millions of dollars to their journeys. Mexico was losing out on a tidal wave of cash, a wave that was crashing on the shores of other nations. But not all things are what they seem. While the world was distracted, Mexico's trade with the United States exploded, making it America's #1 trading partner. This wasn't a gentle increase, it was a floodgate opening. The pressure on the country's existing infrastructure became immense. This surge was supercharged by a trend called nearshoring, where American companies, tired of supply chain nightmares from Asia, decided to move their manufacturing closer to home. Suddenly, Mexico wasn't just a neighbor, it was the most strategic partner on the planet. The Yucatan Peninsula, once a logistical afterthought, was now sitting on a goldmine. The only thing holding it back was the stubborn geology of its coastline. So, Mexican authorities made a decision that can only be described as breathtakingly bold. They launched one of the largest and most ambitious dredging operations in the history of the Americas. The plan for the port of Progreso was simple in concept but staggering in scale. Remove 353 million cubic feet of sediment from the seafloor. That's an almost incomprehensible amount of earth. To put it in perspective, that's enough soil to fill the Empire State Building more than 9 times over. The goal was to deepen the port's fairway from 40 to a massive 44 feet, and widen the navigation channel from 492 feet to nearly 600 feet. It was a declaration of war on their own geography. This wasn't just a minor upgrade, it was a complete transformation designed to create a structural shift in the entire region's economy. The project promised to slash transit times and costs for exporters, making Mexican goods cheaper and faster to get to market. For importers, it meant a more reliable supply chain. The thing nobody tells you is just how fast the world took notice. Before the first dredger even fired up its engines, foreign investors were lining up, eager to pour billions into new industrial hubs, factories, and logistics centers. The promise of jobs, thousands of them, and a flood of new tax revenue was intoxicating. It looked like Mexico had found the key to unlocking a new era of prosperity. But digging up the ocean floor is a messy business, with consequences few were willing to talk about. When the water turns cloudy. It's hard to believe, but the reality is that this monumental project came with a terrifying catch. When you dredge on this scale, you don't just move sand and rock. You stir up massive clouds of sediment, creating what are known as plumes. These underwater dust storms can travel for miles, blocking sunlight and choking delicate marine ecosystems. The Yucatan's coast is not just any coastline. It's a vibrant nursery for countless species and home to precious coral reefs and sprawling mangrove forests. These mangroves are vital, acting as a natural barrier against storms and a critical habitat for fish. The dredging was putting all of this at risk. Everybody was shocked when they heard the potential cost, but the project was already in motion. Environmental groups and local communities raised the alarm. They warned that the sediment plumes could smother coral reefs, kill seagrass beds that feed endangered manatees and sea turtles, and devastate the local fishing industry that had sustained families for generations. You see, the project's timing was also a major point of contention. The dredging schedules threatened to overlap with critical periods for marine life, like fish spawning seasons and the nesting of sea turtles on the region's beaches. It was a collision course between economic ambition and ecological preservation. The fear was that in the rush to build a future of wealth, Mexico was destroying the very natural treasures that made the Yucatan unique. The authorities insisted they had a plan. They promised to implement mitigation measures, like using sediment barriers to contain the worst of the plumes. They talked about aligning the dredging schedules to avoid the most sensitive ecological periods, and vowed to launch massive mangrove reforestation efforts to offset the damage. Real-time monitoring and strict accountability were promised to ensure the project stayed within environmental guidelines. But for many, these promises rang hollow. The scale of the project was so vast that it seemed impossible to contain the fallout. The question wasn't if there would be damage, but how much. And the dredging was only part of the story. The second piece of Mexico's grand puzzle was just as controversial and, in many ways, even more disruptive. It was a project that would cut through the heart of the Yucatan jungle, a steel serpent designed to connect the newly expanded port to the rest of the country. This project, known as the Tren Maya, was about to unleash a whole new set of environmental and social challenges. The stunning progress at the port was only half the picture. The other half was being carved out of one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth. What was happening in the jungle was even more shocking than what was happening in the sea: the sacrificial forest. To truly understand the stunning transformation of the Yucatan, you have to look inland. A superport is useless if you can't move goods to and from it efficiently. That's where the Tren Maya comes in. It's a colossal 965-mile railway project, a dual-purpose system designed to carry both freight and passengers, connecting the port of Progreso to the entire peninsula and beyond. It's the critical land-based artery intended to pump the lifeblood of commerce from the coast into the heart of Mexico. The vision was a seamless network of multimodal terminals, where containers could be lifted off ships and placed directly onto trains, slashing inland transport costs and transit times. But the thing nobody tells you is that the path of the Tren Maya cuts through the Great Maya Aquifer, one of the world's most unique and fragile ecosystems. The Yucatan Peninsula is essentially a giant slab of porous limestone. Rainwater doesn't form rivers on the surface. It seeps down into a vast, interconnected network of underground rivers and caves known as cenotes. These cenotes were sacred to the ancient Maya and are the region's primary source of fresh water. The construction of a massive heavy railway directly on top of this delicate karst landscape was a gamble of epic proportions. Environmentalists and scientists warned that the weight and vibration from the construction and operation of the train could cause cave systems to collapse, irrevocably contaminating the aquifer that millions of people depend on for drinking water. Everybody was shocked when they heard this, but the project pushed forward. Indigenous Mayan communities, whose ancestors have been stewards of this land for centuries, were staunchly opposed. They argued that the project was an attack on their territory, their culture, and their way of life. They pointed out the bitter irony of a project named Maya that threatened to destroy Mayan lands and sacred sites. They reported that proper consultations were never held, and that their voices were being ignored in the name of progress. The railway, they said, would not bring prosperity to them, but would instead bring destruction and displacement. The construction led to the clearing of vast swaths of jungle, with some estimates suggesting that millions of trees were felled. This deforestation threatened the habitat of countless species, including the iconic jaguar. The project was shrouded in controversy, with critics accusing the government of fast-tracking it without proper environmental impact studies and of using national security decrees to override legal challenges. It was a story of a modern marvel being built on a foundation of ecological and social conflict. The stunning vision of a connected, prosperous Yucatan was clashing with the hard reality of what it took to build it. Was this grand vision truly for the benefit of all? or was something else going on? The truth of this massive gamble is still coming to light, and it might not be what you think. Success or a dangerous gamble? So, here we are, watching one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects of the 21st century unfold. On one hand, you have a vision of a transformed Yucatan, a new global hub of trade and industry. The expanded port of Progreso, connected by the Tren Maya, is poised to create thousands of jobs, attract billions in foreign investment, and fundamentally alter Mexico's position in the global economy. It's a stunning testament to national ambition and engineering prowess. The promise is a future where the Yucatan is not just a tourist destination, but an economic powerhouse, a vital link in the supply chain of the world's biggest economies. Proponents argue this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to lift the entire region out of poverty and into a new era of prosperity. But it's hard to believe the other side of the story, especially when you start looking past the official narrative. The thing nobody tells you is that some people believe this project is a cover for something much, much bigger. It sounds crazy, but when you look at the sheer speed and brute force being used, you have to wonder. What if the race for economic dominance is just the story they want us to hear? Think about this. A deep-water port capable of handling the world's largest ships, strategically located in the Gulf of Mexico, isn't just a commercial asset. It's a massive geopolitical prize. Some analysts are quietly suggesting this isn't just about cargo containers. What if it's a dual-use facility? Publicly, it's a hub for trade with the US, but privately, could it become a strategic naval base for another world power? In an age of shifting alliances, a friendly port in America's backyard is a game-changer. The speed of the project suddenly makes more sense if you see it not as an economic plan, but as a race to establish a new military reality before anyone can react. But the theories get even wilder. The Tren Maya isn't just cutting through the jungle. It's being built directly on top of one of the most archaeologically rich and mysterious landscapes on Earth. The Yucatan's network of cenotes and underground rivers is a world yet to be fully explored. For centuries, legends have spoken of lost cities and sacred sites hidden within these flooded cave systems. What if the railway's path wasn't chosen for engineering convenience? What if it's a map, leading to something they don't want the public to find? The frantic pace of construction, the steamrolling of environmental and legal objections, it starts to look less like development and more like a smash-and-grab operation. They aren't just clearing a path. They could be on a high-speed treasure hunt, using a railway project as the perfect excuse to excavate on an unimaginable scale, looking for artifacts that could rewrite history. And then there's the dredging itself. 353 million cubic feet of soil. It's an astronomical figure. What if the goal isn't just to make the water deeper? The Gulf seabed is known to be rich in valuable resources. Could this massive extraction of soil be a cover for a colossal deep-sea mining operation? Are they sifting through that sediment looking for rare earth minerals, undiscovered oil fields, or something else entirely? The official story about bigger ships might just be the most brilliant disguise for the biggest resource grab of the century. Is it right for a nation to risk its natural treasures for economic gain? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories they don't want you to know.